Hi, everyone. This is Scott Mollenkoff with Leanna Organics. Today, we're going to have a chat with Dr. Jason Winkelmann. Dr. Jason Winkelmann is a pain specialist who has a practice in Westminster, Colorado. We're going to talk about the ECS, endocannabinoid system, as well as the idea of holistic health and some of the things that he does at his practice and we do at Leanna Organics for this idea of holistic health and taking care of ourselves. So, Dr. Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So just to kind of start things off, if you want to just kind of tell myself and the audience, what got you into this practice, what your business about, and what your line of work, what you do in your line of work.
Yeah, so I'm a naturopathic doctor and a chiropractor, and I specialize just in chronic pain. When I first started off in practice, I kind of saw every person, every condition, and then the thing that I saw the most mismanaged time and time again was chronic pain. And
Mhm.
I got really good at helping these sufferers because I understood that chronic pain is a physical, biochemical, and mental emotional condition, no matter how your pain started, how long you've had it, what your diagnosis is. You have all three of those things. I haven't seen it any other way. And in order to properly treat chronic pain and to get out of it, you have to treat all three of those things. And I think that my training as a naturopathic doctor and a chiropractor really helps me to treat patients with chronic pain because I can find and treat all of those physical, biochemical, and mental emotional causes.
Um, what does health mean to you? And do you feel this shift that at Leon Organics, we feel this shift of people getting more into the holistic way of taking care of themselves? Just like you said, mental, emotional, what you eat, all of those things more than just the biochemical. So is that, do you follow that holistic guideline of health as well?
Oh, of course, because yeah, humans, we are physical, biochemical, mental, emotional beings. And you
Mhm.
can't just ignore one of those major categories. So when we talk about holistic health and medicine, it's treating the entire body on all of those levels. And I think that I don't know if medicine is shifting there quite yet. Conventional medicine is still very stuck in their ways. But what people want, and of course, what is working, is this more holistic approach that just happens to include natural remedies. And it's not because it's trendy, but it's because it works. Humans were natural beings. We evolved with the earth and what it provides. So to think that we can outsmart the body and just keep producing more and more synthetic compounds to trick the body um, is just, it's silly. We have to give the body what it wants, just like we have to give our cars gas or electricity now. You're not going to put a Diet Coke in your car and question why it's not running.
Mhm.
So yeah, natural really, it's not a trendy buzzword thing anymore. It's always been just how we treat and how we heal.
Mhm. Did you start off in the traditional Western medicine or have you always been down this kind of holistic path?
No, and I never wanted to be a doctor because that's all I thought that were was, what you see in the conventional realm. I had my own health issues growing up and just went from doctor to doctor, getting different trial and error treatments that just left me feeling even worse. And it wasn't until I went to practitioners of complementary and alternative medicine that I actually started to be cured and find
Mhm.
health. Um, so that's when I first found naturopathic doctors and chiropractors and was like, oh yeah, this is the route because this works.
Mhm. One of the things I listen to a lot of your videos on Instagram, my wife and I,
Oh,
one of the
thank
things I really appreciate from you, and we've met in person as well, is the confidence in which you speak. I mean, you're very confident about what you do. So besides yourself, which you've obviously, it sounds like you've healed yourself using these different practices, you're getting results for your clients as well.
Yeah, you're right. That's where the confidence comes from because I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
Um, I have two categories of patients. One category is the people that just want to avoid the conventional routes, and they come to me finding, the natural alternatives. Or it's the people that have tried everything and they've been through the ringer for years, decades even, and it doesn't work. And then they come to me thinking it's just I'll try something different. And it's not, this is what works.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm not surprised by it anymore. This is the real deal.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing we run into at Leanna Organics too. I mean, we talk to people that have been addicted to opiates, addicted to benzos, just the whole gamut of ways of treating themselves, which didn't work out for them, and then they tell us how they're not using these addictive, toxic products anymore, and they're just using CBD. The ones that warm our hearts most is the dogs, the cats and dogs. We love pets, so we love to hear people come in and talk about how their dog or cat is moving better and not as sick or dealing with pain a lot better. So yeah, I mean it's fulfilling, isn't it?
Who's the most fun to treat, and I don't get to do it too much anymore, is pets and babies,
Mhm.
because the placebo effect does not exist on those two demographics.
Yeah.
So when people want to, criticize natural medicine as a placebo effect, and it's like, no, you can't trick a dog or a baby. They don't know what they're taking.
Yeah, exactly. And I would argue too that the placebo effect is a reflection of the power of the mind, and it's part of this bigger holistic thing that you and I talk about because consciousness it's coming to the forefront of science and health now because the mind and body are intricately connected and our thoughts and our beliefs are very powerful. So, not to get sidetracked, but that placebo effect, it's interesting because, it can be used to explain away things, but then it can also be used to explain things in a natural way.
Yeah. And I even, this is just semantics, but I always say that the placebo effect doesn't exist. The placebo effect is not some random occurrence. It is your body healing itself. And that's what all medicine should be doing, is stimulating your body to heal itself, because at the end of the day, our bodies can and will always heal themselves better than modern medicine ever will be able to. So let's just focus on stimulating that natural ability instead of trying to outsmart it.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to what you were saying earlier about the two types of patients that you have, I was one of the ones that was in the second category. I tried everything, specifically with Western medicine. I didn't do the back surgery because my injury was a herniated disc. L5, S1. I can't remember which one it was now because it's been 11 years. But I went through that whole gamut of the steroid injections. I was addicted to opiates for a little while. I went to every type of chiropractic really worked for me. But I went to a bunch of different chiropractors before I found one that was a really good fit for me. I never got into the whole herb thing, which it sounds like your practice. Is that something that you do with your practice, natural herbs?
We incorporate it if it's needed. Yeah,
Mhm,
it's different. So everyone
mhm.
gets it's a different treatment plan, and sometimes that does include botanical herbs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about the ECS. I think I don't remember where my wife and I met you at. I don't know if it was in person or whatever, but I know again we're very interested in your Instagram feeds because we learn a lot of interesting stuff about the ECS. So Um, just curious, why do I understand the whole holistic thing, you focus on pain and all that, but why is including information about the endocannabinoid system and educating your social media users as well as your clients about it important to you?
Yeah, I probably don't do it enough, which is why I'm so happy to be giving
Yeah.
this presentation with you right now. Uh, the endocannabinoid system is, like I'll say, is just like our hormonal system.
Mm-hmm.
It is a major part of what makes humans or mammals mammals. So we can't just ignore a major component of the human physiology and biochemistry. So, yeah, making sure that we stimulate the endocannabinoid system is not just a good idea for chronic pain sufferers, but for everyone because we all have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you have some slides. You want to, I think it's a good time to pull up those slides so we can get a little bit more in depth in it.
Yeah, let's get into it. I love to educate. That is, I think, one of the most important things um, in the chronic pain healing process. So, yeah, we got some slides here.
Hey, before I forget about it, because I
Mhm.
meant to include this in the list of questions I sent you that I'd be asking you today. One of the things that we talk about at Leanna Organics is that pain is a messenger. It's not necessarily, obviously none of us want to feel pain, but sometimes the pain is telling us that we have to move our bodies more, that we have to deal with a difficult emotion, or we need to eat better, whatever the case be. So I was just curious, is that something that you integrate in your practice? Is that a philosophy that you share?
Yeah, I can't preach that enough.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, pain is a symptom. It is not what's wrong with you.
Hmm.
And symptoms are your body's way of trying to communicate with you that something is wrong.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our bodies do not speak English, so they have to resort to other ways to tell us that something is wrong. And it has found that one of the most powerful ways to get our attention is by eliciting pain
Hmm.
because you can only ignore it for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, if you're treating pain, you're not treating chronic. If you're treating pain, you're not treating what's causing the pain, and your pain is just going to persist.
Yeah, and I think that's where Western medicine got it wrong too, is that
Treating
they treat it
symptoms.
as a symptom.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it is a symptom, but they're treating symptoms instead of root causes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right on. So yeah, the endocannabinoid system. Love it. Love to preach about it because it is so powerful. Like I just said, it's a bodily system very similar to our hormonal system. It's, in a nutshell, composed of compounds called cannabinoids and their receptors. And these receptors are found all throughout the body on almost every single cell in our body, including our brain, organs, connective tissues, glands, immune cells. And the absolute bare bones goal of the endocannabinoid system is to promote homeostasis or maintain homeostasis, which, if you remember that word from high school science class, it is to maintain a stable internal environment despite fluctuations in our external world. So, this image is very classic for demonstrating homeostasis, this teeter-totter or seesaw mechanism. So when we have an imbalance in our external world, one side goes up, the other side goes down. And it is the job of your body, whatever mechanism that may be, to bring that back here.
Mhm.
Now, this is ideal. We all want to be here, but this is unrealistic. We are constantly doing this.
Yep.
But if we can stimulate our endocannabinoid system, we'll live a little bit more like right here, which is much more ideal.
Mhm.
A good example of promoting homeostasis is it's hot outside and we can't escape the sun. So, what happens? Our blood vessels dilate to move the blood from our core to our periphery. And then our sweat glands open up and we sweat. And all of these things help us cool down to cool our core temperature.
Yeah, it's a
That's
response.
homeostasis.
Yeah.
And that's just one example of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned recently about the human body, I mean, it's it's common sense, but it's something that I never really thought about, is the body's really good at hiding disease. So, we might feel it, but externally, our system might be like this, and we might not even know it. There might not be any external signals
Yeah,
symptoms. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to your body, because you can catch things and you can start moving things back to this before things get really, really bad.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, good way to put it. So the first component of the endocannabinoid system are the cannabinoids, and we have endogenous cannabinoids, meaning that we make them ourselves. And there's two in particular, anandamide and 2-arachidonoglycerol.
Ooh, glad you pronounced that one.
That's why they're abbreviated to
Yeah,
AEA
say
and
2AG.
2AG.
Yeah.
Uh, these cannabinoids are synthesized on demand from cell membrane arachidonic acid derivatives, which is a mouthful, but I promise you it's important. This is the arachidonic acid pathway uh, made from those membrane phospholipids. They turn into arachidonic acid, which then goes into to make lipoxygenase and cyclooxygenase. And I know this is probably beyond the scope of what we were looking for today, but I think getting this science is really important to understanding the ECS.
I agree. Yeah,
When
this
we
is
go
interesting.
down, when we go down this pathway, the big thing that we're going to focus on today is prostaglandins. These are chemicals that produce pain, inflammation, fever after injury or infection. The endogenous cannabinoids, they have a local effect, which is a good and a bad thing. Good as in they're used right where they're made, so you get a quick response.
Yeah.
Bad is if you need cannabinoids where you're having trouble making them, then you're kind of out of luck. The other issue with our endogenous cannabinoids is they have a short half-life, which is scientific terms for they get degraded very quickly. So you make them, and then if you don't use them right away, they go away. You're not just storing them for later use.
Yeah, it's like your body kind of makes them on demand, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, this is the strongest argument for the use and legalization of cannabinoids is the fact that our bodies make them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other end of the equation on the ECS is the receptors. There's two main ones, CB1, which is found in the nervous system, connective tissues, gonads, glands, organs, and CB2 in your immune system and its associated structures. It's not really pertinent that you know this. The fact that I'm trying to make is that they're everywhere
Yeah.
and therefore really important.
I don't know if this
Researchers
is
also
true or
believe that
not, but I
there's
heard that I'm sorry to interrupt you. I heard that they're the most abundant receptor in the body. Is that something that you know about?
yeah, I don't know if that's something they'll ever be able to prove, but
Yeah, I was thinking.
cannabinoid receptors and vitamin D receptors, I would say, are those are the two right at the top.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
That last bullet point is interesting to me. I didn't know there was possibly a
I know I
large
just threw that in
gland
because
system.
it's so funny to me. It's so silly. And the researchers think there's a third, but they haven't found it yet. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
we think it's there, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so receptors are your cannabinoids are nothing without a receptor because receptors is what makes the magic happen. And I like to think of receptors and ligands. Ligands is a fancy term for cannabinoids or a vitamin, a mineral, whatever.
Mhm.
You need ligands are the key and receptors are the lock. A key by itself doesn't do anything, but if you're able to turn the lock, then the door opens and all the magic can happen. So ligands like our cannabinoids, anandamide and 2-AG, they've got those special teeth, just like keys, and they have to fit into a receptor that has the reciprocating mechanism. If the receptor changed or the ligand changed, they wouldn't bind and nothing would happen. So when these things are able to bind to a receptor, then it tells the cell what to do. That's where all the magic happens. So very broadly, I said the endocannabinoid system is for homeostasis, but more specifically, it stimulates things like pain sensation, inflammation, thermoregulation. That was my it's too hot out and you sweat analogy. Memory, mood, appetite, stress, sleep, metabolism. It goes on and on. The point is, it affects everything. This is a very powerful system. But more specifically, we talk about pain and inflammation. One, because that's my expertise. Two, that's because that's where a lot of the talk is at. That's where people think about, well, that's what people think about when they think about the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids. And this is where the bulk of the research is at right now. So I wanted to give you some specifics on why stimulating the endocannabinoid system is so beneficial for treating pain and inflammation, especially on the chronic realm. We have this inhibition of prostaglandin E2 synthesis. I told you we'd come back here. That's this guy right down here. Remember, responsible for pain, inflammation, fever after injury or infection. So the endocannabinoid system is able just to shut this down right at the source, which is super cool because otherwise our best defense against stopping prostaglandins are NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, acetaminophen, so that's Tylenol, and aspirin. That shuts down cyclooxygenase right at the source, which is a problem because now that also prevents you from making prostacyclins and thromboxanes. These are important things that we want. And when you shut these down, this is why you get the side effects associated with these drugs. The other option is corticosteroids, much more effective at treating inflammation, but it shuts down the pathway all the way up here. So now you don't get any of this, nor this, all really important things.
I don't think we can see your cursor, so maybe you want to talk about the two things that it shuts
Oh,
down.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, the NSAIDs shut down cyclooxygenase, which is
Mhm.
that gray box on the lower right. And then corticosteroids shut down phospholipase A2, which is that gray box at the very top. So when you shut down cyclooxygenase, you lose the prostacyclins, the prostaglandins, the thromboxanes. That's all the way more at the bottom right. When you shut down phospholipase A2, you're not only shutting down cyclooxygenase activity, you're shutting down lipoxygenase activity, which is the gray box on the lower left.
Does that
So
contribute to the toxicity of stuff like ibuprofen and Tylenol, or is that kind of more related to the chemicals that they use in their
absolutely,
product?
that's the back to this slide. When you shut down cyclooxygenase activity, typo there, that's why NSAIDs contribute to GI bleeding and ulceration because you're shutting down the protective mechanisms. When you shut down cyclooxygenase 2 activity, then that leads to things like heart attacks and strokes. So again, why the endocannabinoid system is so powerful, it's not shutting down the good and the bad, it's just shutting down the bad.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that happened with me personally is I used to suffer from migraines. So I used to
Mhm.
pop ibuprofen like crazy. I would take like 8
Yeah.
a day. And it took a while. I don't know if it had to build up in my system or what or not, but as I started taking CBD, not only did it treat the migraine, but I stop having them after a little while too. So, I know it's a little bit different than what we're talking about here with the things that will happen from a toxicity standpoint. But yeah, I could be wrong about this, but I think it's inflammation in the brain is what migraines are, if I'm correct about that. That's just my guess.
A lot of the time, yeah.
Okay.
Migraines are kind of like the great unknown. There are so many things that can cause them, but definitely inflammation, especially in the brain, is a big contributor. Yeah.
And we get questions, and we're honest about CBD. We don't position it as a cure-all. I mean, even though it
No, of
does help
course
with
not.
a lot of stuff, and one of the things that the FDA makes us do is on every page where we're actually selling our products, we have to put a disclaimer saying, CBD does not treat, cure, prevent any diseases. And we're happy to put that on there because it does, and it helps. It makes your life easier. It helps with pain. It helps with inflammation. It helps with skincare. It helps with anxiety. It helps with a lot of those things. But one of the things when we get these questions, we normally say, well, there's two types of pain in the body. There's nerve pain, and then there's pain from inflammation. And CBD helps with pain from inflammation. However, if you have nerve pain, you also have inflammation because inflammation is a response from the body that something's wrong.
Mhm.
So, I mean, obviously you talk about nerve pain given what you do for a living, but am I correct in saying that? I mean, this is what I've learned. I'm not a doctor, obviously. But does that hold true to you, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, you can go even deeper than that. That's a pretty
Broad.
generic
Mm,
and Western medicine explanation for pain.
mm,
Um, Hyperactive nerves are not really like a thing. Your nerve just doesn't start firing for no reason. Something has to stimulate it to do so. So once again, something is binding to receptors that is causing your nerve to fire and signal pain to the brain.
mm,
But there are so many different types of pain receptors. So when you target one, your body just chooses another one to activate. And that
mm.
actually is like a good point of this slide. So to keep going, we've inhibited prostaglandin E2. Great. That's basically your natural NSAID. Inhibits glutamate release. Glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter that intensifies the pain signal going to your brain. So now your brain is disproportionately interpreting the amount of pain that you're really in. Uh, the endocannabinoid system helps reduce NMDA receptor response. NMDA is a very potent pain receptor. When things like opioids become ineffective, doctors sometimes look to treatments like ketamine because ketamine blocks this NMDA receptor. But also, so does the endocannabinoid system. So we
Mm.
could go with a Schedule One narcotic that is really expensive and hard to get, even if your state allows it, or we can just stimulate the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, there's a ketamine clinic right across the street from your office. Did you know that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it also ECS inhibits calcitonin gene-related peptide, just another very potent pain receptor. It helps stimulate beta endorphin production. Endorphins are our body's endogenous opioids. Remember, endogenous meaning what our body makes on its
Internally
own.
made. Yeah.
So yeah, our body makes its own opioids. So now if we stimulate the endocannabinoid system, just helps our body to make more of those natural pain relieving substances. But some people still need to take opioids. Their pain is that bad. So in the short term, let's help them out. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't also be stimulating the endocannabinoid system along with taking prescription opioids because the ECS helps prevent the development of tolerance and withdrawal from opioids.
Interesting.
Really cool. The biggest
Yeah.
problem with taking prescription opioids is your body becomes dependent on them. And dependency is in medicalese means that you have to take more and more of the substance to get the same effect. Your body just gets used to it, builds up a tolerance. And that's where these opioids really pose a problem, is because every time you increase the dose, you increase the side effects, things like respiratory failure. Um, but the ECS also helps rekindle opioid analgesia after prior worn off, essentially just meaning it makes lower doses more potent.
Mhm.
So keeps you at a lower dose for longer.
I didn't use CBD to get off of opiates. I was addicted to opiates from 2011 to 2014. It was never a really, really big problem for me, but it was definitely a problem. It was hard to get off of them.
Absolutely.
But benzos were my problem. I was addicted to benzos for over 20 years. 16 of those years I was trying to get off of them. So I took them
Yeah.
for 4 years. They worked great for a little bit. You know, I was young. I thought I was stressed out. I really wasn't. I was just, being a 20-year-old
Mhm.
adapting to life.
Yeah.
But I took them for 4 years before I realized that they were so addictive. And then I tried to get off of them and I ended up in the ER because I just stopped cold, and you can't do that with benzos. I do feel that the CBD helped me. THC also helped me get off the benzos. But I took my last benzo in July of 2018. I'm proud to say
Congrats. Yeah. One of, if not the most addictive classes of drugs out there.
they shouldn't be illegal. I mean, it was hell getting off of them. Like I said,
Yeah.
16 years. 16 years I was trying to get off of benzos.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a whole nother slideshow.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Endocannabinoid system displays a greater antioxidant level than vitamin C or vitamin E, which is really cool for everyone, but especially chronic pain sufferers who are experiencing a lot of tissue damage due to free radical production. And then to help with inflammation, the ECS also inhibits tumor necrosis factor alpha, which is just another fancy molecule that produces a lot of inflammation.
Mhm.
So we talked about the endogenous cannabinoids, but now we have our phytocannabinoids. And these are plant substances that stimulate our endocannabinoid system. The most popular one being the cannabis sativa plant. And this is where we get delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, and cannabidiol, CBD. And there's other molecules as well. I'll talk about one of them in a bit here. Um, but then there's also other plants that create cannabinoids, spices, herbs, plants, vegetables, and then dark chocolate, because what doesn't it do? All these things contain cannabinoids.
Yeah.
So another good argument for legalization and the use of cannabinoids is we're consuming black pepper probably every day, but we're not trying to regulate black pepper.
That is so interesting. I had no idea that these spices, herbs, plants, and veggies simulate the ECS or
Yeah,
stimulate the
yeah,
ECS.
very cool.
Yeah, I heard of a plant in South America that grows CBD, and it's not cannabis. I don't
Oh yeah,
remember the name of it. I just saw it in, kind of a random article, but
yeah.
super interesting.
Somewhere deep in the rainforest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because from us, from as a CBD company, eh, you know, Google won't take our money, Facebook won't take our money. We were flying under the radar with our bank for the longest time because we couldn't get a bank that would support us, all because CBD is grown from a plant that looks like marijuana.
Yeah,
And
actually, the same thing happened to me when I was trying to get a credit card processor.
yeah,
They're like, oh,
go with
you,
Square supports CBD.
yeah, my credit card processor was like, oh, you use a third party supplement company that also sells CBD, so you have to take that off your website. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah, it's
okay,
coming to an end pretty
that's gonna
soon.
take.
It's all about banking. So as soon as there's a banking act that's going through Congress right now. So
Mhm.
I bet you our problems are going to be solved within the next 6 months. Hopefully,
Oh,
that's
that'd be
what I'm
great.
with.
Yeah. So I
Okay,
want to talk
nice. I
about,
like it.
yeah, I want to talk about CBG,
Yeah.
cannabigerol. There's more to the cannabis sativa plant than just THC and CBD. We're finding more and more compounds. It's just hard to find them because they're small and not in as great of quantities as THC and CBD.
Mhm.
But the research is starting to really target these. And the one CBG is really cool because despite being in a very low potency in the cannabis plant, it has a very high affinity, it has a low affinity for CB1 and CB2 receptors. But when it does stimulate those receptors, it is potentially even more powerful
Mhm.
than THC and CBD.
Yeah.
One way it stimulates the ECS to inhibit GABA uptake to an extent greater than THC and CBD do. And Scott, this is probably why it was beneficial for you when you're trying to get off those benzos, because GABA is a calming neurotransmitter. So when you keep GABA around, it helps with things like muscle relaxation and anxiety reduction. CBG also stimulates our endocannabinoid system more so than THC to provide pain relieving benefits.
Yeah.
So this is why you guys at Leanna Organics creating CBG products is so wonderful, because now we can actually get CBG in a good, healthy form that's potent enough to really, really stimulate our ECS.
I love that you brought up the GABA. I don't know if there are receptors or is GABA a receptor or is it a
No, GABA
molecule?
is a neurotransmitter.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
gotcha.
it has to
Yeah,
bind
so
to
and it's
receptors.
associated with the digestive tract, correct?
It's used all over the place. When
Okay.
we talk about neurotransmitters, we like to try to keep them in a small box.
Mhm.
Serotonin is happy and dopamine is reward. They
Yeah,
work
it's not that
all
simple.
around your body. It's
Yeah.
not that simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed myself, and it's something that we communicate to our customers a lot, is when CBD first came out, the tinctures were the main way, and we would say put it on your tongue because it gets into your bloodstream quicker. But what I've found specifically with gummies, although you can swallow the oil as well, is that it just hits you different. And it makes sense because, I'm a THC smoker. It hits you completely different when you eat a THC edible than when you smoke it. So it makes sense that these cannabinoids, just like TBC, CBD or THC, when they travel through your digestive tract, it hits you different. And I always tell people that if they're looking to sleep, first off, the CBG works great for sleep. I mean, me personally, it just knocks me out. But I also tell people, and gummies, you can't put it under your tongue. But if someone's buying the oil, I'll say try it where you just put some in your mouth and swallow it. Next day or next time you use it, try it under your tongue. It'll get into your system faster, but you'll feel it slightly different, and you might be able to sleep better or handle difficult emotions better if it goes through your stomach. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that as well.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. So hopefully by now, the benefits of stimulating your endocannabinoid system is well known to you, but this is well known across the board, especially in the pharmaceutical industry. They want to get their dirty little paws on this as well.
Mhm.
Um, they're creating synthetic THC, which again is just like, why? Just grow the plant and let us use the plant.
I
Two
compete
drugs
with
out there
Mother
right now,
Nature.
Marinol, Casamet. These are both FDA-approved drugs for the treatment of severe nausea and wasting syndrome, but clinicians are using them off-label for the treatment of chronic pain and migraines. So once again, just let us have it. Stimulating the endocannabinoid system, very powerful. Everyone knows it. Everyone's trying to do it now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that you can't put a patent on something that comes from nature. If you tweak it a little bit, make it slightly different, then you can patent it and make a lot of money off of
Oh
it.
yeah, absolutely. I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, but that's the nail on the head right there.
Have you paid attention to any of the negative scientific stuff that's come up on CBD studies and stuff like that?
No, I predominantly see like the good, peer-reviewed research, which is just positive because it's a
Yeah.
positive.
So there's the reason that you haven't it hasn't come up on your radar is because number one, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, right.
And the one that does exist, it's very misleading. So they gave a mice or mice 1/3 of their body weight of CBD,
Yeah, right.
and the mouse died, of course, because 1/3 your body weight of water will kill you.
Mhm.
Um, and they marked it as this is toxic because it killed the mice, but really when you look into the study, it's because of the amount of CBD that they gave the poor mouse.
Of course, the dose makes the poison. Too much vitamin A will kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's, yeah, everything needs to be in the right amount. So
Yeah,
Yeah, that's too
you
bad.
and I talked early before we hopped onto the actual call about, as a business owner, because ultimately Leanna Organics is a business for me and my wife. We pour our heart into this business because, I'm a big fan of the cannabis plant, and I really believe that this is the future of health. Um, but it was pleasantly surprising for us to we knew about CBD. We knew it was non-toxic. We knew it was an alternative for opiates, benzos, sleeping pills, all these really bad things that were plaguing society. But we didn't, and we knew about THC. We made a concerted effort to stay away from THC just because of the legal implications. But we heard about CBG, we heard about CBN, and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. But now they're coming to the forefront and they work, which is really cool as well. So as a business owner for us, it's just been so amazing for us to have not only CBD but these other cannabinoids that come from nature that don't hurt you, aren't addictive, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So now the question that's always asked is why supplement with this stuff? If our body makes our own, why take more? Well, we don't always take enough. Our body makes vitamin D, but most of us still supplement with it or should be supplementing with it. You just can't always get enough of it. But another really good reason is because research has shown that small doses of CBD can signal your body to make more of its own cannabinoids and
Mm,
build more receptors. And this is why many first time CBD users don't feel an effect. It's because you don't have the receptors. If you're not making enough AEA and 2AG, you're not going to make more receptors. The body's not going to waste its time or energy doing something it doesn't need to. So now if we start supplementing with CBD, now the body goes, okay, the need for the receptors is here, starts making more. Now you've increased your sensitivity to CBD and all the other phytocannabinoids and your own endogenous cannabinoids as well. And this just allows smaller doses to have larger effects. And the baseline of your ECS system is just greater. So now it's working more efficiently around the clock.
mhm. That's so interesting. We talked earlier about the endocannabinoids kind of being made on demand by the body. I didn't know the receptors did that too. That's amazing.
Yeah, your body will just fluctuate how many receptors it makes. And that's one of the ways that your body will enforce pain. Remember, pain is not the problem, pain is just a symptom. So,
Hmm.
in order to get your attention that something is wrong, your body has to come up with more ways to create pain. And one of those ways is
Got to get your attention, right?
by reducing opioid receptors. It just stops making them so that you feel pain more intensely.
Hmm.
So yeah, it can just make and reduce receptors on demand.
Yeah, one of the things that we preach with our customers is consistency. So instead of taking a large volume at once, a huge dose, and expecting something to happen,
Yeah.
just take a good sized dose, whatever that is for you, daily, and then 3 to 4 weeks, especially when it comes to pets. I mean, consistency is so important with pets with treating pain. Seems like anxiety, it calms them down right away, but you really got to give it to them for at least 3 weeks in order for a dog or a cat to respond.
Yeah. Consistency and then breaking it up into smaller doses as well. It's kind of like the same principle of what I say, like spread your protein out throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one last little note. I want to talk about clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. This is kind of a new emerging thing that researchers are finding that whether it be genetic causes or from an injury or disease, some people are just not able to make cannabinoids and receptors. And this can lead to a variety of medical conditions. And they've found correlations to migraines, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome, all things that don't have a cure
Yeah.
in conventional medicine. But they're just finding that no, you have a tough go with your endocannabinoid system. So we need to help support you in that facility. We don't need to give you more pain medicine. We need to help your body in what it is actually lacking. So
Yeah, we
you
hear,
talked
I
about
might pronounce
migraines
this
earlier. There
wrong.
you go.
I might pronounce this wrong, but we hear endometriosis. We hear that one a lot
Endometriosis. Yeah,
from our customers. Yeah. And again, not a cure, but it helps. It helps with the pain that they feel and other things.
absolutely. Because the endocannabinoid system, it's so powerful. And when you can stimulate it, you almost don't know what's going to happen and how many great things can happen because it affects so many things, but especially the pain and inflammation that is very, very well documented, whether in the medical literature or just from testimonials from all the users out there.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm so glad that you had me on. Here's some ways to get in contact with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to tell you personally, I really appreciate what you do. It was a pleasure meeting you. I think it was like around April that you opened your shop.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was a pleasure meeting you that time. I get a lot by watching your IG videos. My wife and I, you show up on our
thank
feed
you.
a lot, so we learn a lot. And I learned a lot from this as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today and look forward to working with your partner or partner with you further. And I would say to anyone that's listening to this that's suffering from pain, you're not stuck. We're not in the 90s, the 80s and 90s where we were just kind of fumbling around and trying different things that didn't work. There's actually ways that you can heal yourself. It's not always a quick fix. It's a holistic fix. It's a fix that involves not only the chemicals in your body, but the emotions that you feel, what you eat, your body, and what I appreciate about what you do is that you treat the whole body. It's not just one thing. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jason.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
You too.